Hey everyone, for the next 4 days we're going to be working on fractions. So we're going to start out reviewing some things with adding and subtracting fractions. So with this problem, 1/2 plus 1/3, I'm going to draw a model to solve it to begin with. So remember, we'll divide it in half, and this represents the first fraction. And then for the second fraction, I'll divide it into thirds. And then now to make common units, remember when we're adding and subtracting, we have to have like denominators. So if I'm using the model, I'm going to make this one into thirds. And then I'm going to make this one into halves. So now my new fraction is 3/6 plus 2/6. So now I have like units, so I can add these together and I get 5/6. Another way that we could solve this problem is by finding the least common multiple. Some of you may look at this and use 24 as your common denominator, but if we're using the least common multiple between 6 and 4, we can count 6, 12, 18, and then 4, 8, 12. So 12 would be our least common multiple. So we're going to use 12 as our least common denominator. So 1/6 plus 3/4. If I use 12 as my denominator, remember to create equivalent fractions. Whatever we do to the denominator, we have to do the same thing to the numerator. So 4 times what gives me 12? That would be 3. So I would multiply 3 times 3 to get 9. And remember, that's like multiplying by 1, so we know that we're keeping equivalent fractions. And then here, 6 times 2 gives me 12, so I'd multiply 1 times 2. So now I have 2/12 plus 9/12, which gives me 11/12. So I was able to do that now that I had common denominators. Alright, and now we're going to do a subtraction problem with mixed numbers. And I'm going to go ahead and do the model for it. So we have 1 1/4. So I'm going to divide it into fourths. And then I've got this whole one, and then 1/4 of this one. And then here we've got minus 1/3. So I'll divide it into thirds. And I'll shade in my third. Now to make our like units, I'm going to divide this one into thirds. And then if I rename what I have, I've got 1 and then 3/12. And then here I'm going to divide this one into fourths. So I have 4/12 now. So this one shows me that I need to take away 4/12. So I'm going to take away 1, 2, 3, and 4. So my answer is what's remaining. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I have 11/12 left over. Now if you didn't use the model, you would notice that when you try to subtract 4/12 from 3/12, you need to use the whole number. So I'm going to rename the whole number, and we know that it can be renamed as 12/12. So I'm going to add that to my 3/12, which gives me 15/12 minus 4/12, and I get the 11/12. Alright, I wanted to set the stage for this work problem. So Michael spent 2/5 of his money to stream a movie, and he used a fourth of his money on a Dr. Pepper. What fraction of his money is left for popcorn? So there's a couple of different ways that you could solve this, but I'm going to go ahead and start out finding out how much he spent so far. So 2/5 of his money went for the movie, and then 1/4 of his money went for the Dr. Pepper. So I'm going to add these two together to figure out the total amount that he spent. So I'm going to get common denominators. So if I'm counting my multiples, doing 5, 10, 15, 20, and then count my multiples of 4, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. So some of you can do that without finding the multiples, but 20 is going to be our least common denominator. So 4 times 5 would be 20, so I know I need to do the same thing to the numerator, so I'm going to multiply it by 5. So that gives me 5/20ths. And then 5 times 4 gives me 20, so I'm going to multiply 2 times 4 to get 8. So I've found my like units, and I've created equivalent fractions. So now 8/20ths plus 5/20ths gives me 13/20ths. So Michael has spent 13/20ths of his money on streaming the movie and the Dr. Pepper. So the last part, we want to find out what fraction of his money is left for popcorn. So to do that, we can either count up to 20/20ths and see what we get, or we can subtract 20/20ths would represent his total amount of money, minus the 13/20ths, what he's already spent. So that means that he has 7/20ths left for popcorn. Okay, now you can work on your assignment in Google Classroom, and I want to leave you with this lunch.